Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played, of course, for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And Tom, here we are. This is the Laidlaw and Allen report, and we're moving toward the draft finally. We thought this draft was going to be in June, and here it is. And we're in September, about to turn the page to October. Now we're going to be talking about the draft. But before we do that, we had a very, in New York anyway, emotional buyout of Henrik Lundqvist, who's been the Rangers goalie forever and a day, or so it seems. And even for the most part, I think the fans certainly respect what Lundqvist has done for the franchise. There was a lot of frustration at times as well. I think some fans, kind of blamed him when things didn't go well, which is what happens with quarterbacks in the NFL and goalies in the NHL. But anyway, what's your thoughts on the end of the Lundqvist era with the New York Rangers?
Well, he's one of those rare athletes that you'd have to look back at and be like, he's a Derek Jeter kind of guy, maybe a Eli Manning kind of guy, that he's almost that perfect athlete. He had that career where it wasn't just on the ice, his performance, it was off the ice, the way he carried himself, like he was such a professional, the way he dressed, the way he treated the fans. He was part of New York City. He represented New York. He wasn't just the Rangers he represented New York. So the Ranger fans love him. Yes, was there some frustration? Yeah, I mean, like all fan bases, they want to win. And when they're not winning and he's not playing the best hockey that he ever played, some of the heat comes his way. But even like I watched this season pretty closely with, Georgiev and Shesterkin coming in and taking his job. And the way he handled himself, there was never any comments. I'm sure he was asked over and over, had plenty of opportunities to show his frustration. And I'm sure maybe behind the scenes, he had some frustrating moments. Maybe he, had many conversations with his wife or, agent or both. But he just seemed to handle it so well. And whenever he was called on, he went out and played his best, even in the playoffs there when Shesterkin got hurt and he had to step in. Again, he just went and played. Was he perfect in those games? No, he wasn't. But he just, I thought he just was I looked at it like I was thinking about, like, how do you term what his career is about? I think he's just that perfect professional that he's everything you want in an athlete. So yeah, tough to see him go. I'm going to make my prediction now, and you can make yours. I say he's going to end up in Colorado. I think they're going to say, listen, but I've been reading some stuff too where they're saying more as a backup, but I don't see, if I'm going to go get Henrik Lundqvist, I'm not seeing him as a backup. I'm seeing him as a number one guy. Is he the perfect number one guy? Is he the number one guy he was, 5 years ago or 7 years ago? No, he's not. But man, to me, talk about a guy that's going to have a fire under him right here. He's had this great career with this one organization. They handled it fine. Rangers were, I think, total class with him too. But he's going to say, I want to prove that I still got something left. So that's my prediction. He's going to go to Colorado and he's going to be the number one guy.
All right. I like your Jeter comparison because Jeter always did things the right way. And that, to me, that was Henrik Lundqvist on and off the ice. Like, I thought he was born to play for the Rangers. Like, he's a Manhattan guy.
Yeah. We dressed and everything, the hair.
Yeah. No, I remember each year we'd do the national media tour, and because he was Henrik Lundqvist and because he was always accommodating with the media and he was always willing to do it, like, we often saw him, even though they try to rotate it around so that players don't have to do it every year. But he often was a Rangers representative because, he was good at it. And he didn't mind doing it. He saw it as part of the service of being a professional athlete. And I used to always joke with him. I once did a story about how many suits he owned. And at the time, I don't know, it was 60-some, which I told him that after I wrote that story, I said, I talked to Nick Lidstrom in Toronto, a fellow Swede, and he had seen that story. And he said, the amazing part about that, and of course Nick was making like $8 million a year. He says I probably have 9 or 10, and here's Lundqvist with 60. So always a well-dressed guy. Yeah. But I think what I appreciated about him was, he's the rare athlete that had all the elements. Like, he was great with the media. He was exceptional on the ice. And, what a social conscience he has. If you think back when Hockey is for Everyone first came up, Lundqvist was one of the early spokespeople for that. He was a guy that kind of stood out and, kind of said the right things and make it more inclusive and so forth. And so I appreciated that about him as well. And if you look at his numbers, he's just a sure first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah. 459 wins, and of course, Olympic gold medal, World Championship. Didn't get a Stanley Cup, but a 208 goals against average in all the international games he played, 243 in the NHL, a 918 save percentage in a league where average, I think, is around 910, 911, somewhere in there. Yeah. This is a guy that's kind of always, done it right. And I agree with you. Like, he's not going to go to be a backup anywhere. So that's why I don't like your Colorado plan. I'm going with your buddy, Don Waddell in Carolina. I think.
Do you think, but his goal is, I guess you can't guarantee it, but his goal is to try to go somewhere, and Don's going to not like me for this, but somewhere where they got a chance of winning the Cup. Doesn't Colorado have a better chance of winning the Cup than Carolina?
I think they do, but I think Henrik Lundqvist wants to be the goalie that leads him to the Cup. Yeah. But Carolina, I think Carolina has a chance to win the Cup.
Yeah, no, you're right.
You improved their goaltending. You had some more scoring. The one thing I didn't like with Carolina this season, we've talked about this on the podcast, I thought in their biggest games, their top players like Sebastian Aho in particular, and I don't mean to pick on him because he's an incredible player, but he's young. He's still young. We forget that. Yeah. And I didn't think he rose up when he needed to in that playoff series. And those guys are going to get better, and they'll probably I think Waddell is going to try to add another scorer as well. Try to help that thing. So
yeah, could be. You're right. But what I loved about Henrik too, you're talking about him. I thought when he early in his career, he's an incredible competitor too. And early in his career, that kind of hurt him sometimes. I remember when Tom Rennie was coaching, I think it was, Henrik pulled himself out of the net a couple of times, and Tom Rennie allowed it to happen. And then when Tortorella got here, he did it. I looked at it at first like, oh, come on, that's immature. Well, he was a younger player back then. But I just think he got so frustrated that it wasn't that he was quitting on the team. He had to get out of the net. Like, he was just totally losing his mind. And then when Tortorella got in there, that didn't happen anymore. It's you're coming out if I'm telling you to come out, not when you want to come out. And he corrected that. That was for a couple of years there. It happened. It didn't happen all the time. It was rare that it happened. But he corrected that. But I'll tell you what, if you could have a microphone on him when he gets scored on, or they get run around in their own end, and if defensemen weren't doing, or forwards weren't doing what they should have been doing, then you could tell he was ripping into the guys, And I think the guys accepted, because you don't like it. I never liked it as a goaltender did that. But you know what, though? He wanted to win. It's the same as Wayne Gretzky staying out on the ice for 3 or 4 minute shifts. Normally, you'd say you don't want guys doing that, but it's Wayne Gretzky. He's trying to win, and the same thing with Henrik. He wasn't picking on guys just to pick on guys. He wanted to win, and if things weren't going the way they should, he was going to let them know. But he was tough. He was a real competitor.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, maybe you can argue that it's fault. You shouldn't blame your teammates, but on the other hand, I think people respect that he's that much of a competitor.
He's one of those guys that could do it, because his preparation, his effort out there was always totally professional. He would always be prepared. It didn't always work out. He didn't always play great, but it was never because he wasn't prepared or wasn't working hard. So I think players knew that. Okay, well, he can say something because he's always there, right? He's always doing it for us.
There are so many goaltenders available, and we talked about this in the last show, that I think everybody has a plan A, B, C, D, and E. And I think Lundqvist is one of the plans for the Edmonton Oilers as well. I think they'll be in on Holtby, and they'll get someone else. And, how will Henrik feel about going to a team that, has Draisaitl and has...
So this is a great question, I think. Would it be the same going to a team to win a cup and not with the team that you've been with your whole life? Would the feeling be any different? So Ray Bourque kind of scenario, right? Ray Bourque played all his years in Boston, didn't win, and then goes off to Colorado and wins. I'm sure it would mean more if you stay. Like if Henrik goes someplace and wins it, I think it would mean more. look at Ryan McDonough now. He was a Ranger. He went and won it with Tampa. So it'd be more to be that team that you're drafted by, you stay with all the time. But man, it's still winning the cup. I mean, the cup. You watched Ray Bourque when he won the cup, and he was in tears. So
yeah, no, I don't think these players see themselves as mercenaries when they do that. I don't think Bourque. I think Bourque said, I ended up going to a team and I contributed, and he did. To a Stanley Cup championship, and I think that's how McDonough feels, and that's how Lundqvist would feel. And the other thing that to note here is that in the old days you could identify the 3 or 4 teams that had a real good chance to win. Now, who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that Dallas would be in the finals, right? I don't think anybody would figure that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but you couldn't just all, if ever you said we were going to go to the team that we think is going to win, not everybody would have gone to Tampa.
No, sure. I agree. Boston, St. Louis, all those teams were there.
I mean, there are a lot of teams, and the same is true for next year. Like, the odds makers have actually anointed the Colorado Avalanche as the odds favorite to win the cup next year. Yeah. But first of all, by the time the season starts, that could change.
Yeah.
And secondly, even though you and I like the talent on that team, who knows what's going to happen? We don't know who's going to get injured or, what'll happen.
Tampa not be at the top of that list now. I mean, why isn't Tampa at the top of that list right now?
Well, I think if I had to guess what the odds makers are looking at, and that's one of the things we'll probably talk about, coming up here later in the show here. But Lightning have a lot of financial decisions to make. They're going to have to reduce payroll a little bit because of cap considerations, and that's going to mean that some pretty key players might have to, move on. So, I think Lundqvist has kind of some decisions to make, but he'll be a free agent. He'll get to do that. He'll have a say in where he goes, and I think you're absolutely right. He's going to want to play. I don't think he's going to accept a backup role if he has a chance to be a number 1 goalie. And, I said he had 459 wins. I think before he's done, he'll have 500 wins.
Ooh, 450. I think he's going to get 41 more wins. Wow.
But do you think he's done this year?
That's a good question. Well, I think what happens, right? Does he get to go to a place where he really thrives, where he is a number 1 goaltender and plays like Henrik Lundqvist can? If he doesn't get that, he may then say, "Well, I'm going home." Right.
Well, and I could say with some certainty that Henrik Lundqvist didn't see this bullet coming. Like, I talked to him last fall, and he and I had a conversation about that the previous year in New York hadn't gone the way he thought, because he had, if you remember, committed to being part of the rebuild. He said, he was excited by it. He thinks because of the way he has treated his body that he can play into his 40s. He told me that.
Yep.
And he didn't sound like a guy who was going to have to move. But I don't think he saw the young Rangers goalies being as advanced as they turned out to be.
Right.
And I
view that as a good. I think part of that probably is too that he, and I mean this in a very good way, he has a ton of confidence in himself. He's done the work to give himself that confidence, and he deserves to have that confidence, right? So he's thinking, okay, I know these good young goaltenders are coming up, but I'm still Henrik Lundqvist, and that's what he should think too. So
I'm King Henrik.
Absolutely.
I rule. I rule.
And you know what? You have to have that attitude to be that kind of guy. You have to have the Tom Brady attitude. I'll never forget, I saw Tom Brady interviewed before one of the Super Bowls, and they talked for a while. The reporter, him talked for a while. Then the reporter said to Tom Brady, he says, when's the last time you doubted yourself? And this was classic. Tom Brady paused for a second. He goes, I can't recall. You have to have that supreme confidence in yourself if you're going to be, but you don't get that confidence unless you've done the work. And those kind of guys like Lundqvist have done the work to give himself that confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised he said when I was 9 months old and I didn't know whether I could walk or not. Because you're absolutely right. Top, I always talk about this, pilots always talk about, especially fighter pilots in kind of the Top Gun mentality. They always, they don't entertain the possibility of pilot error. And that's the way great athletes are. They don't think about what'll happen when they fail.
Hey, by the way, and lead analysts are like that sometimes too. We do need to mention that I think all the writers that voted for the Conn Smythe were listening to this show when I predicted that Hedman should win the.
Oh yeah. I meant to bring that up. I forgot all about it, to be honest with you. But you're absolutely right. I mean, he certainly was deserving of it, but I just thought that the lure of the numbers, and I thought especially if the deciding game point had been
they scored the winning goal, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But as it turned out, they saw it your way. So
the same thing with Vasilevsky too, right? Don't you think if they had given it to Point or Vasilevsky, or maybe not as much Kucherov, although he was in there, any one of those three guys could have won it. Really?
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. Right. All right, let's move on. I want to hit some other topics here because with the draft coming up, as I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of action, I think. Yep. And I wanted to talk maybe each of us to come up with 5 teams that we think we want to watch because we think things are going to happen with that team. And I'm going to go first. Okay. I'm going to say the Florida Panthers, and that may shock some people.
Yeah, it shocks me. I did not have them on my list.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because, I know Bill Zito. I knew him when he was an agent. This is a guy that's paid his dues. He was assistant GM in Columbus. He worked with Jarmo Kekalainen. He's very aggressive. He knows the league from a variety of perspective. And I think everybody's sort of thinking, well, the Florida Panthers are going to lower payroll because, they don't have a huge revenue stream even when things are going well because they don't fill up the building. But, Vinny Viola is an interesting owner there. And I bring that up because, Jeff Vinnick, an owner that I respect, he's the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, who just won the Stanley Cup. Yeah, he told me in an interview several years ago that he liked Viola. Viola's a former West Point guy. Actually, I think President Trump offered him a cabinet post at one point, and he decided against it. But so I don't think it's a given that they're going to lower payroll. And I'm starting to hear rumblings that Bill Zito is going to poke his nose in the Peter Angelo sweepstakes and look at other things as well. So, and they got to change the culture there on that team. I think both you and I agree with that. And you can't do that without cracking a few eggs.
Yeah. I did not have them on my list, but now that especially you talk about free agents like Pietrangelo potentially going there, you got to remember no state tax in Florida. That's made a huge difference for Tampa, right? They've got guys like Stamkos and Hedman and everybody to sign contracts. It's probably less than they could have got someplace else, but at the end of the day, what actually goes in their pocket is pretty similar. So that's a good one. I like it.
All right. Sounds good. Give me your first.
I'm going to go with the Arizona Club.
Okay.
So they lost their second round pick for this year, right? And their first pick for last year. And that was when the old general manager, whoever it was responsible, had the young kids they were going to draft coming in for physicals earlier than they're supposed to. So they've lost a second round pick this year and a first round pick next year. They've got guys to move. I mean, Kessel, they've got to do something with him. Something's going on. Something has to happen with the goaltending, whatever that is. Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Is he a free agent, Larsson, or is he still got a year on his contract? I can't remember.
I know he signed a long-term extension. Yeah. Like he's a big ticket.
Right.
If you want to get him.
His name is floating all over the place, right? To get
it is.
Well, so I think Arizona is a team that's going to make a lot of moves.
There's rumors they want to cut 10 to 15 million out of the payroll.
Ooh,
so if you're going to do that, you can't nickel and dime it.
Right. So Ekman-Larsson will be the big guy that everybody will want, right?
Yeah. But
yeah.
Isn't he like $9 million? We'll have to call up Cap Friendly and look here, but
right.
And he's got a lot of years left, so that's not an easy deal to make. Although I did see TSN has reported that Ken Holland in Edmonton, and boy, isn't that exactly the kind of defenseman they've been looking for a lot of years? Kind of a puck mover, a take charge, power play guy. But what do you give up? Armstrong is the new general manager in Arizona. Like, he's in a difficult position because you want to make that deal and get players back that can keep you competitive, but you can't take back salary or it defeats the purpose of moving them out. So you're going to have to get younger players. That's going to be
the way is too. Look what Tampa did by going off and getting Maroon and Shattenkirk and those kind of guys who are older players near the end of their careers. So there's experienced guys that probably aren't going to get all that much money. Do you go for some of those guys too?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, so like how much money if you're going to trade? Well, let me call up Arizona here. So, and Arizona is their cap situation's at $80 million, and we know they're certainly not drawing in revenue for that. Okay, so I thought 9 million. He's at 825 million.
Ekman-Larsson.
Yeah.
What's Kessel at?
Pardon me?
What's Kessel making?
Yeah, that's impossible. You're not going to be able to move him. Kessel's at 6'8".
Well, what if you take back part of his contract?
Yeah, but that kind of defeats the purpose as well.
No, but again, he's not the 40, 50 goal scorer that you hope you would have, right? What did you get, 15 goals or something last year?
No.
I mean, that's the problem, right? I mean, you can go out and get a 15 goal scorer. I mean, go get Patrick Maroon, those kind of guys. Like, I'm just thinking, if you still want to stay somewhat competitive, but you got to get rid of the high price talent. I think you look at those older guys. I know that's not the way to build an organization typically, but if you're just like for right now, you're getting them on short-term deals, 1 or 2 year deals. I mean, to me, that kind of this, I'm not saying Maroon is the answer, but those kind of guys are maybe a little bit older.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're going to be like, if I'm looking at it and I had to cut payroll, Michael Grabner at 3.3, like a lot of teams like Grabner.
Yeah.
He's got speed. He's a breakaway every game.
Yep.
Like I think you can move him. So there's 3 million there, and probably you could get a draft pick back, which you really want. The other guys that I would look like, they've got defensemen. Heljarmison, a $5 million guy, but only 1 year.
I like him too. Oh,
I do too, but he says he's staying there, so he's got a no movement clause. Yeah. So that's that's not going to be easy. Jason Demers, I think there's a guy probably you can move to. He's at almost 4 million. So you can try to move that, but I think it's going to be hard to move a lot of the guys that they would want to move. That's the problem. I mean, Derek Stepan, 6.5 million. Like Derek Stepan would to me be, a good fit for someone looking for a third line center who can, contribute some goals.
He's making over 6.
Pardon me?
He's making over 6 million.
6.5, yeah.
And I like Stepan, but I don't like Stepan at over $6 million.
No, that's exactly right. And but the good news is he just has 1 year left.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, could somebody eat that or willing to accept that for only 1 year? And then, like if he's your 3, boy, you're in good shape.
Yep, totally. Yep.
Yeah, you can kill some penalties. He'll contribute. He's got some offense. So, I mean, but 6 million is still a lot in a flat cap era. So, I like your pick of Arizona because I think he's going to be pulling a lot of levers there. Trying to get this thing, lower the payroll, stay competitive, because they made strides. Yeah. That's the frustration. Like they were there. They were a defensive team. Rick Tocchet has done a really nice job of making this team competitive, and that defense, they need guys like Heljarmison.
Right. So there's no shot at Taylor Hall staying there, then, right?
There's no money. At least I don't see it. Right. Unless you can. Like I said, if you could trade Ekman-Larsson and Grabner and then not take any money back, well, that's 10 million.
Right.
So,
but then Taylor Hall's going to get 8 million, 9 million.
Yeah. Well, then you're not. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's why there's. I
keep Ekman-Larsson than Taylor Hall. Like to me, Larson's a better all-around player, and at that position too, to find defensemen like that. Right. Like I would not want. I know they want to get rid of money, but if they could get rid of, if they're saying we're not going to sign Taylor Hall, that's $8 million that potentially would have been there. That's gone. Let's see if we can get some of Kessel's money out of there. Get those other guys, Stefan out of there. I'd rather keep Ekman-Larsson, and you got to build around a guy like that. But
no, well, I would too. But there's what our wish list, and then there's reality.
Yeah.
The reality is that how much are you really going to be able to move Kessel? I say no.
Well, if you're going to take back some of his money, right? If he's, I know you're not losing it all, but I just don't see the benefit from him. Like he played so great in Pittsburgh, but man, he just hasn't done it in Arizona.
Yeah.
Like, do I want him on? Is that the kind of player I want on my team? And I like Phil Kessel. I like the way Phil Kessel played in Pittsburgh, but that's not the Phil Kessel that they've got in Arizona.
Yeah, but every other team is thinking exactly the same way you just said. So.
But then again, he was the same way in Toronto when Pittsburgh picked him up. Like when Pittsburgh picked him up.
Well, no, that's not true. when Pittsburgh picked him up, he was a consistent goal scorer.
Yeah, but he still had that reputation of being.
It doesn't matter. He was a consistent goal scorer,
totally.
and now he's not. It's been a while since he's been that guy that was automatic 20-plus goals.
Right.
And I think that's the issue. I mean, even if you took half the money at 3, so now you're saving 3. What are you going to do? Take half the money on Steffen too, or do you think you get someone to take him for 1 year at 6 months?
Yeah, I think you can get somebody to take Steffen for 1 year.
Yeah, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
But not this year when everybody's the flat cap and everybody's looking. There's TSN showed that there were at least a third of the league that's in serious cap hell, as they called it.
Right.
And then another third that's kind of right in the middle, and then there are third teams that are doing okay. So,
yeah.
All right. My next team, I'm going to go with the Detroit Red Wings. And they have a lot of cap space. I think they're going to poke around at the goaltending. I don't think, despite the fact there was a report they were interested in Markstrom, I don't really see that. I think Markstrom probably will resign in Vancouver if I had to guess, and it's just a guess.
Right.
But even if he doesn't, he's a better fit for teams that are closer to winning it all. The Red Wings are still a long way away, but Yzerman is a pretty shrewd guy, and that team's lack of credibility last season, lack of ability to compete, I think it actually kind of hurt the young group that he's trying to build around. Like I think you need a little confidence. So I think he's going to be looking at that goalie group to see if he can get a guy who can
great, right? You're thinking as sign a free agent,
and to work with Bernier and give that team a little more credible goaltending. And I also think he might look at free agency. He's got some money, but I think it'll be the kind of lower run guys, and no term. Like I don't see him giving anybody. He wants that cap space moving forward because when this team gets rolling, he is going to try to sign a big free agent, but it won't be now.
Yeah, they're great. They're not ready for big free agents right now. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. And I think the goaltending position is important when you got a young team like that have a guy that's a steady guy. I mean, listen, maybe it doesn't fit for Henrik Lundqvist because he's probably going to want to win a cup, and they're not near to do that. But Markstrom is kind of guy. Like I think a Markstrom kind of guy. Look at the Swedish back. Isn't Lindstrom still working for that organization till this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So maybe that's a fit that he can talk to Markstrom and say what a great place it is to play. But maybe that's the position though. I think you say to yourself, okay, if I really believe that Markstrom, whoever that goaltender is that guy for us, then I think you could go a little longer. You can go for 4 or 5 years with a guy like that. But I agree with you. I think that Detroit, well, I don't have them on my list, but now that you're talking about it, I could see where they could do something that, like you said, not to make a difference to try to win a cup, just to solidify that team so those young kids aren't losing all the time. So I agree.
Yeah, why don't you run through? We're about running out of time here. So run through your list real quick.
So I had Buffalo next. I mean, that Eichel thing, there's still Bob McKenzie, usually is pretty reliable. He came over the room, but there's something going on. He's potentially even asked for a trade. Dallas, I just think they've got an older lineup. I don't know if they can do anything, but Jim Nill's a great general manager. I don't think he's just going to sit there and say, okay, we went to the finals. They've got something there. I think Minnesota, too. Guerin's been there long enough to see what they have, what their needs are. So I can see him making more than the trade thing, I think, right around the draft, for draft picks and everything. Nashville, something's got to change. Pittsburgh, I don't think Jimmy Rutherford's done. There's got a short window there with Crosby and Malkin. And then Winnipeg, something's got to happen with Laine as well. Laine.
Yeah, no, I like all those things. I've got the Penguins as well. They still got to trade Matt Murray. And I've said all the time, Rutherford is a terrific trader, and he figures out ways to do it, even when he's kind of capped out, when he has difficulty. He's very creative. And the Lightning, here they just won. It's the Blackhawks all over again. If you think back to that team, they've got cap issues, and Tyler Johnson, Yanni Gordy, those are guys that could be in the sights, but there's rumors floating around that it may not be one of those guys. It may be a little bit of a shock of who they might trade. So,
and do they keep guys like Maroon and Shattenkirk and Bogosian? I mean, there's almost those guys that you brought them in to win the cup, but now they really don't help you as much during the regular season.
No, and you don't really have room for them all. So the answer is probably no.
Right.
So I expect them to do some stuff. And then my final team was the Golden Knights. They're going to have to deal with the Fleury situation. Are they going to really sign
Nope.
Robin Leonard?
Leonard's on the market, and Fleury still got 2 years left in his contract.
Yeah, well, that's what they're going to do. And the rumor is they want Peter Angelo, and that would really change their team. Obviously, I've heard he likes the idea of playing there as well. So I think there's going to be more than there.
Interesting how these rumors are coming out where these free agents are going.
Yeah,
that's not supposed to be happening, right?
No, but that's what they're doing. So, and the Golden Knights will have to trade Alec Martinez, to create some cap space. They just got him from the Kings, but I think this was the plan all along. Yeah. We're going to rent him. We'll trade him again because he's easily tradable. Yeah. He's a very solid, dependable defenseman. Has played with top teams. Right. Gets the job done. And his contract is reasonable. It's in the $4 million range.
And really quick here, because I'm here in New York and Rangers and all that. Do you think the Rangers are going to do anything?
Well, there's rumors, floating around that they're still trying to get a center, that makes sense for them to get us a number 2 center. So we'll see. There's not a lot out there. I looked at the center group, and it has to be someone out there that we're not thinking about, because I wouldn't move on any of the free agent centers.
I agree. Okay.
Anyway, you've been listening to the Laidlaw and Allen Report. I'm Allen. He's Laidlaw. We'll be back next week prior to the draft.
See you next Monday, guys.